Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah.
Sorry about yesterday. Just got some. Wife is sick. Daughter gets. It's like a revolving door. Something going around. That's fair.
Yeah, so it's you, your wife, and your daughter. You got any other kids?
Yeah. I actually have another one on the way. My wife is due in March, so I have another daughter coming. How about yourself?
Yeah, I got a 5-year-old and a almost 2-year-old son.
Oh, nice. Congratulations. Are you local? I see you have a San Diego number.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because you were what? But was it Buffalo, New York? That was where you started over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I went to college up there. I went to college up there. But I grew up in New York City. Yeah.
cool. Yeah. So I grew up in San Diego my whole life, for 24 years,
Oh.
and then we went to Seattle, to Spokane, to Post Falls, Idaho. So it's
Oh,
kind of cold
wow.
up here today.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. I've never been to Idaho, but I've been in Seattle many times. But yeah, it's definitely.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's cold. I know my share of cold already. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the well. I was always too hot in San Diego myself, so
Okay. I see.
yeah,
Yeah. It's yeah pretty nice and warm here though. I like it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll be back there once my bones start creaking and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. You need that. You need that warmth at some point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm also an early riser because my wife is a doctor. She's a naturopathic doctor,
Okay.
and so she's building her practice. So a lot of work for
Awesome.
her. Yeah,
Okay. How's it
yeah.
been? Has it been very receptive in Idaho? Is that the ideal crowd for her for naturopath? I'm not sure what the market is like for that there.
Yeah, it's a strong market, even in a cash practice basis.
Good.
I'm guessing you work with a lot of NDs for the testosterone thing, right?
I don't necessarily, but in San Diego, there's a ton of NDs, obviously. So, um, I know some of them, but I don't necessarily work with them per se.
Right. I just know a lot of
Yeah.
NDs end up doing like hormone replacement stuff.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I know
It's
like
very big in the
TRT
clinic.
is, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, for sure.
But no, I was a San Diego local. I just keep the 619 to confuse people so they can't just find me, based on my number.
Yeah. And I saw the 619 number. I was like, oh, okay, it's San Diego
Yeah.
number.
SoCal boy, right?
Nice,
So, yeah, all my
nice.
life, worked in my dad's business. We did deep tissue therapy for like athletes and stuff for a while. And then,
Okay.
I just wasn't planning on being in there forever. Plus, we had to move because when I got married, the satellite campus for Bastyr University wasn't as well funded. So my wife wasn't going to get a good education for becoming a doctor there,
Sure.
especially at the cost of it, right? So we went up to Seattle, and that's where she kept going with her schooling and finished.
Got it.
So
Got it.
about
Okay. Yeah.
4 years in Seattle there. Yeah.
Nice.
How did you
Nice.
come over
Nice.
to San Diego? Was that some travel nursing, and then you're like, I like it
Uh,
here?
Not kind of, and not really. So I was
Yeah,
after college. I left Buffalo. I wanted somewhere warm, so I went to Arizona for a little bit. So I was in
mm,
Arizona for like 2.5 years, and
yeah,
then I did a nurse and travel assignment in LA. But I was trying to when I was living in Arizona, I would visit San Diego, and I really liked
yeah,
San Diego, so I wanted to move
yeah. You
here. It
just go
was
a few
hard.
hours west, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, but it was hard to get a job, so I took a travel assignment in LA. So while I was in LA, I would
mm,
apply to jobs in San Diego. So I had interviews in San Diego. So that's how I ended up in San
there you
Diego.
go.
I
Huh.
mean, I was working at Scripps Encinitas for a while. I met my wife there, so
Yeah,
been down here ever since. So yeah, it's been good.
yeah. I noticed you were talking about Blue Monarch, husband and wife nurses, or is she a nurse too?
Yeah, my wife's a nurse. Yeah,
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 very cool.
she's a
Yep.
nurse. Yeah, she's a nurse. Yeah, yeah. She
Yeah,
works. She works in the OR. I mean, she's there like once a week, and she's mostly home with our daughter. But she still enjoys it. Yeah,
yeah.
still enjoys it. Yeah.
Nice. So you said that's the operating room, right? That's what you mean, the OR.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
operating room. Yeah. She
Just
likes
make
it
sure
there
I
a lot.
understand.
Yeah. She likes it there a lot.
Yeah, so that's kind of like more of the intense stuff, right? Or
Yeah. I
high
mean, I think
touch.
it's more like graphic, right? You get to see more
Yeah,
interesting things, but
Yeah.
Patients are usually asleep, obviously, so it's not much conversations going on except with the
Yeah.
doctors and the nurses and other people. But she likes it a lot. Yeah, she likes it a lot. It's a very like cool niche.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
So, yeah, my sister's a nurse, RN. She's got a bunch of kids though,
nice.
so she doesn't. I don't even know if she's doing it as much anymore, but I think she might do a couple days a week or something for some income. But yeah,
Okay,
kind of
okay,
familiar. Yeah, cool, cool, man. Well, yeah, I was looking
cool.
at your Blue Monarch Hospice. I'm curious about that.
Hmm.
Curious about Huddle Men's Health. I mean, there's a few things we could talk about, but like,
Okay.
what's your main thing right now? What are you really focused on as an entrepreneur?
Focus on both. Yeah,
Yeah,
focus on both. So, both take up a lot of my time. So, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, just in it right now. Yeah,
Okay, all right. So we'll kind of mix it up with both of those. Um,
sure.
so let's go to the first question here, just to kind of start it off.
Okay.
You've done this for a while. I know you've had a couple entrepreneurial things. You were like a co-director of something before Blue Monarch,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
So, what what kind of got you started? Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong question here. What kind of got
It's okay.
you started in terms of being an entrepreneur? What made you get into Blue Monarch after you were like a co-owner of that other company?
So that's a good question. So I'm a nurse practitioner by trade. So I got into men's health just because of my love of fitness and sports and just optimization, like hormone optimization.
Yeah,
So I was an employee at first. I really did well with the patients. A lot of it was, having great customer service, and guys really appreciated that. And we always talked about, oh, what do you do for working out? So my sports background always came into play, right? Oh, what do you do? Like, you look great, right? I mean, if you're very like personable with your patients, they really love that. You
mm,
spend a good amount of time with them, not just, seeing them for 15, 20 minutes and rush them out the door, right? So we were
yeah,
very blessed to have those time, allocations to see them for
mm,
about an hour. So anyways, did really well with that. I really enjoyed seeing how the testosterone can change these guys' lives, right? People come
mm,
in extremely fatigued or have all these other low testosterone issues, and then they'll get a testosterone and they'll be a whole new person, right?
yeah,
So I really enjoyed that. So I was doing great with that. So my boss at the time, ex-partner, wanted me, he offered me to invest in the business, my wife and I. So
mm,
we ended up doing that. So that's kind of how I fell into entrepreneurship per se.
yeah,
I was an employee at first, and then fell into that and just tried to soak up as much as I could during that time.
right, right,
Yeah.
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 So did Huddle Men's Health get started back then, kind of alongside Blue Monarch, or what was the
No,
order? Yeah.
I was a partner in that, and then I left that company in 2022 December,
Mm,
and then I started Huddle Men's Health after I
okay,
left. Yeah,
gotcha,
yeah, but
understood.
I already started Blue Monarch before I started Huddle Men's Health.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and with
Yeah.
Blue Monarch, you're building. Are these facilities that you guys are starting up in different areas? Because I noticed you have several locations in the SoCal area.
That's a good question. It's not facility. So most hospices don't have an actual, inpatient facility. So
Mm,
they're called community based. So those areas are just areas we serve. We serve all of San Diego County. So
mm.
essentially, we have an admin office, and the staff, we provide care wherever the patient lives. So the
Oh, it's
patient can
home
live at home.
services.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
home services. So they can live at
Okay.
home. They can live at a nursing home. They can live
Yeah.
wherever they live. So it's a service business. So we go wherever they are to provide care.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
they're driving over and then giving the other spouse or family member some time to relax a little bit on care. But you can
Yeah, there's
provide the medical care. Yeah.
some of that. Yeah, it gets a little more complicated with, the respite stuff. But yes, we do
Right.
go out there multiple times a week for, just to provide care. And we're also on call
Yeah.
24/7 if anything were to come up. Yeah.
You said 24/7 though, so Blue Monarch is just kind of ready to go.
Yeah, you have your patients, so anything can
Mm.
happen at any given time of the day. So you have to be,
Uh,
by Medicare guidelines, you do have to be on call 24/7. So we always
okay,
have a
gotcha.
staff on call, a nurse on call 24/7.
Within each community, yeah, gotcha. Okay, interesting. And what was I mean, hospice isn't new. So was unique about Blue Monarch that made you create the business, or what was the gap? Was it just poor care for hospice individuals, or what's something
That's
specific that kind of made you like, I'm going to make Blue Monarch because this is missing?
That's a good question. So while I was in my other company, my job essentially became supervising the clinicians. So what I mean by clinicians, the nurse practitioners and physician assistants. So I was doing that. I think I was maybe 32 at the time, 36 now. But I wasn't necessarily bored, but it was good to like keep growing. So I wanted to,
Right.
build another company, or well, start a company at some point on top of what I already was running. So, my
Yeah.
good friend, had a very successful company in San Diego. He still does. And he thought it would be a good fit for me. He thought I would you know, run it well because I'm a clinician, right? And I think there wasn't a lot of hospices owned by clinicians, right? So he thinks like with my personality and my customer service, I would do really well with it. So he recommended I do it. So that's kind of how I fell
Okay.
into that as
Yes.
well.
Kind of pushed
Yeah.
you
So
into making it. Yeah.
so that's kind of how that all started.
Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, because like then you have a little more control, like a lot more control of the process, right? And what you bring in.
Um, yes and
Not
no.
really.
It's yes and no. Like you just don't. I never ran a hospice, so there's a lot of things I just didn't know. I mean, he was extremely helpful, but it's just like one of those things you have just like a garden hose in your mouth, and you just try to keep up, kind of thing, right? So,
Hmm.
it was a lot. It was a huge learning experience. I'm still learning, but it's been great. But the beginning was, challenging,
Yeah.
just because it was just like industry that I knew nothing about, other than obviously patient care because I'm a nurse, so
Yeah.
I know
The
how to treat. But
operation you can do,
yeah, but
but
hospice is extremely regulated because we reimbursed by mostly Medicare, so there's a
yeah.
lot of laws and rules and things you have to kind of get acclimated with. But it was good. It was awesome. I loved the experience, but yeah, it was definitely challenging, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. It's something I work. So I work with startups, and my firm's built to provide fractional solutions for them, right? So
Sure.
the reason this is interesting is talking with you is it's going to turn into insights that my interested buyers or customers can benefit from, just hearing other people's stories and how they kind of overcame challenges too. So it's typically a difficulty to get funding for starting a business, or to get it to make enough money to kind of keep moving forward or be stable as a resource for the economy and the market, right? So,
Sure.
what are some things you ran into, or some things that worked for you to help you get going with Blue Monarch, or how did you do it?
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome you're doing that, first of all, because, I mean, one thing I wish I learned was like, I wish I started business when I was younger because there's just so many
Yeah,
things you don't know. You just keep learning. The funding is like the huge, like, first step for most people. I didn't really have an issue there because I was blessed at the time, lucky. So I was already co-owner of a company that was, I
yeah,
had a pretty nice income that I was making. And then, my, my, uh, my wife's side of the family actually helped me with some of the funding to start the hospice because the hospice is very capital intensive as
yeah,
opposed to the men's health stuff. So in order to start a hospice and hire people, everyone you hire is licensed, right? Like a physician,
yeah,
a nurse, social worker. So it's just payroll is like your highest expense. And let alone to like start the company. So anyways, it's capital intensive. So I was able to leverage the funds I was already making from my other business, and my in-laws were able to assist with some funding as well. So I was just kind of up and running like very easily. So
yeah.
I was blessed. So I never had an issue with getting the money, but
Funding side.
obviously I've read a lot of business books, not a lot, some. I listen to a ton of podcasts. So funding
Yeah,
is very difficult for most people. So I can
yeah,
see that, but I was blessed to not have that issue.
yeah,
But I know it can be challenging. But if I were to do it again to get the money, luckily I've been surrounded with like very good friends who I think I could reach out to raise the cash and things like that.
yeah.
But I
Kind of that
haven't had
seed money. Yeah,
yeah, but I haven't had much experience doing that, luckily. Just because I just was kind of in a, I guess
unfortunate. Yeah,
very fortunate situation to begin with. But yeah, that can be an issue
yeah.
for a lot of people.
One of the things I always think startups should be doing as founders, I think it's usually better for them to have a job, like a more consistent day-to-day job that they are really comfortable with, um, while they're starting their startup. Just because there's so much that's unknown early on, you need to have some stuff stable while you're taking the risks on the other side.
Yeah,
In my
absolutely.
experience, yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. It also depends on where you are in the stage of life, right? So if you're like a 22-year-old you graduate college, you live in mom and daddy's basement, obviously that's a different
yeah,
story, right? You
you
can
can take
just,
some risks. Yeah,
whatever, right? Yeah, take some risks. But, if you're like 30 with a wife and kids, then that's a little more different. You got to like provide, right?
yeah,
But yeah, I agree with you. I do think that you need to be able to have a stable income while, working on on your business on the side. That's what most people
right.
do. And I think that's the best way to do it as well.
Yeah. Well, and like kind of what you were saying is like I think it's one of the first ways to fund your startup is to keep your job and kind of measurably build your startup and fund what you need to get it to where you can put a little more time into it, like where you have some customers, maybe like buyer interest.
Right. No, I think
Yeah.
so. I think it's just, once you slowly build it up to the point where you can leave your job and then you can just go into your business full time kind of thing.
Yeah. So the funding's one side of it, and you told me about that, but getting your first customers, kind of proving that your idea for value is agreed to by your buyer, right? Like where your buyer thinks you have value as well in the company. How did you connect that with your first buyers? Like, what did you do personally in terms of activities for sales or marketing? And what vendors maybe did you engage with to help with that? And then, like, what worked
Uh,
best? Like, kind of give me that story.
yeah, I think that's like the hardest step in the beginning. It's getting those, early adopters. So it's just kind of like putting yourself out there for the hospice, business. It's very different because it's very relationship based. So someone has to trust you to refer terminally ill patients to you. So it's not something you
Yeah.
just advertise online and say, "Oh, send me patients." You do that. So you
Yeah.
have to know you to say, "Oh, like Tristan's a great guy. I think he provide good care and they'll send you patients." So essentially, when I started the hospice company, what I did was I would literally get in my car. I would drive all over the county. I would stop at as many doctor's offices I could stop at. I could stop at as many nursing homes I could stop at. I could stop at as many um, hospitals I could stop at. And a lot of no's, right? A lot of like, oh, the
Yeah.
person's not here. A lot of emails unanswered. So I essentially just got into in front of as many people as I could and say, hey, my name is Raphael. I started this hospice company. I'm a nurse practitioner. I provide great care. Just give me a shot. If you like me, great. If you don't, no. I did that for months, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I started generating enough traction to the point where the company was generating enough revenue where I was able to hire like a salesperson eventually. But in the beginning, it was just me doing all of that. And then for the men's health clinic, luckily, digital marketing does help. However, you still want to get those early patients that
Yeah.
will help you break even as fast as possible. So my biggest thing there is essentially the same thing. If I knew friends who are 30s, 40s, and I could tell they might have low testosterone, I was like, hey guys, I'm starting a clinic. Tell your buddies, whoever it might be, I'll give you a discount. And that's how you get your patients. And there's a certain number you can get to where eventually your digital marketing starts catching up with your word of mouth. So you
Yeah.
just things kind of explode.
Yeah.
So a lot
They
of
work
it
well
is
together.
just, yeah, a lot of what I've learned so far in my 4 years of business, and don't get me wrong, I'm still learning. I don't know everything. I'm learning every single day.
Well, that's kind of the
Is
thing. Like people in being entrepreneurs is always like learning continually, right? So, go ahead.
Yeah, it's like never ending. So business is all about relationships. Like
Mm.
I'm not the person to say like I want to be out of mind, out of sight. Like of course you want your employees to run the business and run it well without you, but I'm all about relationships. Like, okay, hey, this is the company. I can put a face to this company to figure out who owns it. Um, and vice versa, whatever the case might be. So, I try to build that trust factor within any business that I own and run. And I think that goes a long way because people do business with people they trust and it's all about
Yeah.
relationships. And that's one thing that I really, um, try to make sure that we're kind of echoing in both of my businesses.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I noticed with Huddle Men's Health, you have some partnerships, like with LabCorp, for example. How much have you used partnerships for sales? Like I know you approach those doctors and such, but um, are there organizations you can partner with to recommend your hospice services beyond just direct doctor practices like primary care?
Yeah, so for the hospice one, the main referral sources are going to be like community homes. So what I mean by community homes are assisted living,
Yeah.
independent living, memory care. So this is where, grandpa and grandma, they can't be in their home anymore and they go live at these places now, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you build partnerships with these decision makers at these facilities. So they could be the
Yeah.
directors or the executive directors, and that's usually how most hospices grow partnerships with that. On the men's health side of things, not necessarily LabCorp, there's no partnership level
Yeah.
there. People you
Not for sales, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For that is mostly, um, you know, fitness people like gym owners, right? For example, physical therapists, urologists, people that would deal with men that
Yeah.
could potentially have low testosterone. The fitness and gym one is a big part because a lot of times people, they don't realize they have low testosterone, so they could be doing all the things they can, like eating wise, exercising, and nothing changes with their body, right? Or they're like, what's going on? So
Yeah.
oftentimes people are like, well, maybe go check your hormones out. And then that's kind of how
Yep.
we get some patients through that. So yeah.
Yeah. And then suddenly we have abs again, right?
Yeah, well, that's the goal, right? I think that's most people's goal, right?
Yeah. Just get rid of the flab. Um.
Yeah.
So you talked about going all over the county for Blue Monarch. Just to talk to anybody. Was that mostly assisted living facilities, or did you kind of pivot to that as you realized that was probably a better part of your time? You know.
Honestly, it didn't matter anywhere. Doctors office, assisted living, all of it. Anyone that could
Okay.
literally refer me a patient, if I saw on the map, I would just stop in.
Okay.
And trust me, most of these stop-ins were like dead ends, right? It wasn't like you could
Yeah.
just walk in and go talk
Like
to the doctor. They're
they're not
busy.
here.
Yeah, they're not here exactly. So, but I was just trying everything I could, obviously.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Nice. Nice. All right. So let's go with this. I'm gonna do kind of a rapid fire sales test. All right, because that's
sure,
kind of our main
sure,
thing right now at Sales Partner Founders. It's going to be other stuff eventually, but
sure.
so what type of company is your ideal buyer? You can pick which company you want to answer that
Yeah,
for.
so for the hospice, it's literally anyone who's terminally ill, right? So, that's it could be of any age, obviously. Well, not any age, really, treat patients from 21 and up. We don't do pediatrics. So it would be,
Right.
anyone who's terminally ill. So that one is pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Medicare has a set guidelines that we have to go through and they reimburse us. And then for the men's health clinic, generally men 30 and above, right? Who, they are wanting to turn their life around. So they're very serious about becoming disciplined with their lifestyle habits. So what I mean by that is, okay, like I'm going to start exercising,
Yeah.
consistently. I'm going to start eating well. And I'm going to start, not drinking or smoking. And then if I have low testosterone, I'm going to testosterone because the testosterone business it's, you know, we can control mostly what the patients do when they're in front of us, right? But when they leave the clinic, we don't know what they do, right? So the
Yeah.
biggest thing is holding yourself accountable. Testosterone itself has been around for
Yeah.
decades, right? It works well. So I always tell patients it only works well in conjunctions with good lifestyle habits. So if you
Yeah.
get on testosterone and you're not exercising and working out, you're really going to be wasting your time and your money, right? So, ideal client would be someone who's serious about changing your lifestyle habits to be more healthy.
Yeah. Just
Because those
consistent.
patients,
Yeah.
yes, because those patients, they crush it on their testosterone. They feel like a whole new man. So, that
Yeah.
would be the ideal client.
Gotcha. Okay. But
Yeah.
in terms of getting that business, well, either of the businesses to revenue, I'm going to guess your ideal kind of source of leads is those assisted living homes for Blue Monarch, like getting as many of those in your back pocket, right, to like send you leads. And then for the men's huddle, it'd be like I'm guessing it's gyms, right, where there's like a
Yeah.
long term customer, or yeah.
Yeah. Those are the key ones. Yeah. Correct.
Got it. Okay. What contact in these companies do you have to talk to? Like at a wellness facility or at assisted living? Like who's your buyer persona there?
So the testosterone wellness clinics are a little bit easier. It's just, ultimately it's the patient that has to make the decision, right? So it's not
Yeah.
like, hey, well, sometimes they have to ask the wife, right? So it's like, hey, honey, I have a little testosterone. I'm thinking about starting this thing. What do you think? But oftentimes, we
Yeah.
don't deal with the spouse, but sometimes patients come in with the spouse because they want to learn more, but usually the patient is making that decision themselves, right?
Mm.
Which should be the case. For the hospice is, usually the directors of these buildings, right? So those are the people that actually make the decisions or the recommendations to the families of the loved ones at these facilities. So the directors could be the patient care director, it could be the executive director. So anyone that's involved in the patient's care are usually the ones making these decisions. And oftentimes these facilities have either a small number of agencies that they work with specifically, or maybe just one that they just work with only. But usually they have a few that they work with, in terms of hospice, home health, whatever the case might be.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So this is a fun one I like to ask. When it comes to let's go with Blue Monarch this time. Uh, what is the ROI on them working with Blue Monarch versus something else or another option? You know.
Another agency, hospice agency.
Well, either doing their, if in some cases they might try to do the care themselves, right, or something like that.
I see.
Or I'm not saying that. Like, what's their option, right? As a terminally ill patient or a family, why work with Blue Monarch versus others, and what's some of the ROI on that decision, right? Like that.
Yeah.
How do you define that when you talk to them?
Yeah. So that's a good question. So once a patient is terminally ill, like you want to, sign them up on hospice, you have to have a hospice accredited company by Medicare. So you can't essentially do it yourself. So you have to reach out to like a hospice that's accredited. So there's a ton of hospices in San Diego. Obviously for us, the biggest thing differentiator is one, we're clinician owned. So we really, put an emphasis on like patient care.
Okay.
We don't have a million patients where it's hard for us to staff these patients, right? So
Mm,
with hospice, a lot of the main issues is, how fast are you to
mm.
respond, right? So
Okay.
a
Customer
facility might
service.
call, yeah, a
Yeah.
facility might call you and say, hey, this patient fell. I need a nurse out here to come see their wound, or if they had a wound, or just kind of assess them, right? Uh,
Mm,
some hospices are great. We're getting there at a reasonable time, an hour or so. Some hospitals can take them 4 or 5 hours to come. So that's
mm.
that's a huge differentiator, right? So you don't want someone
Yeah.
sitting there who could be really hurt for 4 or 5 hours. So our biggest thing is we service a certain region of San Diego, which is just North County so far. So we're very um our response time is very quick. I'm probably one of the tops in the county. We get to patients within like 45 minutes, if not less, of
Nice.
facilities.
Okay.
So it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. So now most of the hospices in the area, or I should say, are a lot of them not clinician owned?
Yeah, I would say most of them are not clinician owned. Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, they're not,
By
most
like
of them are not
a
clinician
holding
owned.
company or like a private
Like a
equity
PE
firm.
firm, or
Yeah.
yeah, just someone who's not in healthcare at all. I mean, which is fine, right? It's just, that's a big differentiator for us, is that we're clinician owned.
Yeah. Well, it's like
Yeah,
a trust building thing, right? Like from the top to the
sure.
bottom, there's an understanding of clinician care, and that's probably felt in terms of your response times, right? Like
Y- y-
that's obviously
Yeah.
someone who's a clinician, right? He's like, oh, you got this problem going on, you need some help as soon as possible,
Of
right?
course, I understand that as a clinician. I understand like someone needs to go out there. Someone else who's not might not understand the urgency of things, but I
Yeah.
understand it. And I also let my team run things pretty. I give them like full autonomy. Obviously, I step in if there's something that needs to be fixed, but
Yeah.
I give them full autonomy. So
For their style of
they,
care, kind of.
yeah,
Yeah.
they have the vision of the company in mind. So they do things how I would like it to be done, but
Yeah.
I don't do any hand holding or anything like that.
Yeah. You don't micromanage. You
No,
macromanage.
it's no micromanaging is exhausting, first of all, and it's like
Yeah.
it's like what they say, right? It's like, you want to work, out of your business, not in your business. So I always try
Yeah.
the best ways to not be involved in the business at all,
Yeah.
any way possible. Yeah,
Okay. Nice.
yeah.
Nice. I like that. I like that. Um, so here's kind of the next one. Like, so you have some businesses, right? You got some goals there. So what's the biggest challenge in revenue growth today? Like, where are you trying to go? And, you know, how are you solving for it?
So that's a very good question. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you want to keep growing your business. I don't believe in if you're not growing, you're dying kind of thing. I
Yeah,
think some
yeah,
people are
I don't
just
agree with that.
sometimes, yeah, I think some people are just happy with where they get to. But obviously, being a fairly new entrepreneur, my business is only like a couple years old. I have, revenue target goals for the hospice. The way to get there is having more marketers, hospice marketers, which is a sales team. And obviously, as that your patient census grows, you hire more like clinical staff and things of that nature. So that's kind of what we're doing now. The challenge there is finding really good hospice marketers. That's very difficult to find. And I had my share of difficulty finding one. So the people I have now, I have two now, and they're amazing and great. So that's been going really well. So we're on track with that. And then for the men's health clinic, it's really just making sure people are aware that you're there, right? That you're here and this is the services you provide. Because oftentimes because most men, you'd be surprised, don't know much about testosterone. And
Yeah,
there's a lot of lots of myths, lots of myths out there surrounding testosterone, meaning, oh, like I just need it if I really want to like be massive and just be at the gym, all these things, and people don't understand all the benefits of it, and from cognitive to obviously physical, to sexual, all these things that are
yeah.
important for men to
Even with
function every day.
like moderate dosing too, right? Like very
Oh yeah,
safe dosing and all that. Yeah,
which is what we do. That's what
yeah,
we do. So a lot of men don't understand this, and that's my biggest thing is
yeah,
finding out more ways to educate men, right? To educate men and say, hey, like this is not like steroids. You
yeah,
just injecting or whatever, applying to be some kind of gym rat or something like that. It's more so like, oh, like I wake up, I have energy, I'm motivated,
yeah,
I can have energy, hang out with my kids, I'm
yeah.
intimate with my
Exactly.
wife, all these
I can see
things. I'm
it.
like, yeah, I'm like, these are all the things you need in your actual daily life. And my biggest thing too is not for everyone. Like I love high performing people. I like as men, like I'm like a huge believer, like men should be like high performing, meaning like we're the provider for the family and
Yeah,
we
me
are
too.
like we're
Yeah,
like we're like not necessarily go getters, but we just make things happen. And I think
yeah,
like oftentimes as you get older, you get married, you have kids, you have responsibilities. Like most times, like sometimes you could be exhausted because you just have so much things going on.
no
So I'm
sleep.
like, yeah, no sleep, all these things oftentimes that affects your testosterone. It's like, well, in order to be this above average man and be a provider and be a go-getter, you have to make sure your testosterone levels are optimized. So
Yeah,
that's why I'm such a huge believer in that, 'cause I'm very traditional. I think
yeah,
men supposed to wake up every day and just go hunt. That's like what I believe in. It's like you wake
yeah.
up, you make things
You're ideal.
happen. Like
Yeah,
yeah, it's like you make things happen. You make sure your wife is comfortable. You make sure your kids are comfortable,
yeah,
but you can make them comfortable if you're not feeling good yourself.
exactly.
So
Yeah, if you're not healthy,
that's
yeah,
exactly. So I can go down the rabbit hole of this, but that's like my thing. I'm like super
yeah,
passionate about that. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, me too. I mean, for me, it's mostly from like Christianity. Like, I feel it's like a calling. I need to
yes,
be this guy because I see
yeah.
that being the example from God to me. Like, I'm supposed to
That's
follow
what
that, and yeah, yeah, yeah,
God created us men to be hunters. God
yeah,
didn't create us to just lay around on the couch and just hope like some handouts or somebody comes and
yeah,
saves us. I'm
yeah,
like you're supposed to make things happen. God wants you to go out there and be a provider for your family, so you just got to do it.
yeah, yeah. That's why it feels good
Yeah.
when you catch a touchdown. You know,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
kind of
It
thing.
feels great.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
feels great. So yeah, I struggle to believe in that, but I know it's not for everyone, but that's my belief.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Totally. Okay. And let's see. Well, I was just gonna say, like, my thinking with both your businesses is aggressively building the partnerships that bring you the terminal patients. That's where my head's at, right? Like with
Sure.
your hospice marketers, what are they doing? Are they just marketing people, or are they actually just going to everyone, driving around like you were and talking to people?
Yeah, so it depends on the kind of market you get. There's some people that are already seasoned that have a book of business.
Hmm.
And even with a book of business, they're still also trying to gain more, kind of grow their book of business. So essentially, with their book of business, they just make frequent visits to their book of business. So, like, let's say you're a person who refers to me over the years. I see Tristan maybe like twice a week. Say hello, drop us some cookies, or just kind of, see you face to face, just to kind of, keep the relationship going. Um, but if you're a brand new marketer, a lot of times you do have to do a lot of these drive-in and it's less efficient, right? Because you have to build up this referral sources. So buyers luckily are already seasoned, right? So most of the time they're already going to their book of businesses just to, keep the relationship going and say hello, things of that nature. And
Yeah,
then, they make times throughout the week where they go to potential new, referral sources,
yeah,
to kind of get going. So my thing, I had no book of business, literally no
yeah.
book of business myself.
Yeah, that's why
So
you
that's
had to
why I would
just
just drive,
grind.
I was just driving everywhere because I have no book of
Yeah,
business.
it's just
Yeah.
football practice all the time.
Yeah, literally. It was just
This is
driving
Hell
around
Week, right?
forever. Yeah, driving around forever. It was, now I look back at it, it was like, wow, but it's, when it's your own thing, it's fun. You got to make it
Yeah,
happen.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's more of a connection to it. So,
Yeah.
uh, do you guys do anything in terms of calling in to set up times for the hospice marketers? Like, do you set
Oh,
appointments that way at all? Like, just calling for the right person, getting a chance to introduce your hospice service?
yeah, so there's some places that are harder to get into, mostly hospitals, right? So,
Mm.
oftentimes,
Yeah,
you can call, but mostly that doesn't work because they're just so busy.
yeah.
Usually just email, just say, hey, can we come in and talk to your staff about our company, see if we
Mm.
can work together and things of that nature. So a lot of it is just email, or if you just, meet them in person, you can always kind of, say,
Yeah.
hey, this is me. I'd like to meet you guys and things like that. Yeah.
What was hard about finding the right hospice marketer? Is it that like, finding someone who can talk the talk well, or is it the book of business? Like, what was? Tell me more about
Yeah,
that.
so the thing about that, Tristan Hospice, there's a ton of hospices in San Diego, first of all, so it's highly competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is you want someone that is very relatable, that will talk to everyone in the facility, from the janitor to the executive director, like someone who's very personal. The biggest thing about, so there's a ton of hospices, so very competitive. There's a ton of hospice marketers trying to get the same patients you're trying to get, right?
Yeah.
So the biggest thing you want to do is be able to stand out. It's very hard for people to stand out. So for example, if you were to come to me and you were just like super boring and say, hey, like, here's my brochure, Raphael, like, he referred me a patient. Like when I had a patient, I might not think of you, right? Of something like that. But, luckily the people that I have are super personable. Obviously they have a book of business. And people love them because they make things happen. They're very responsive, first of all, and they're very hardworking. So I think you have to find someone who has a combination of those things. And that's usually kind of what helps that.
You just heard from Raphael Akobundu, the owner of Huddle Men's Health and Blue Monarch Hospice. There's a lot to learn from every founder when it comes to growing enough revenue to be a stable, quality resource for the market you serve. I'm Tristan Nuñez with Sales Partner for Founders, and we develop fractional solutions for startups to reduce failure rate. From my first-hand sales experience working with 9 startups prior to starting this firm, hiring full-time staff often is not the best option in the early days and can hurt your success in business. In some scenarios, you don't ever need a full-time hire and can keep your overhead lower while growing your company. Let us collaborate with you and develop the right fractional solution for your startup. Thanks for listening.